where are you at now, 72 hours or 48 hours after?
Yeah, I still feel the same disappointment I feel like that I felt post-game. And it's just disappointing when somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose, good teams, but you just want to go out in those moments and play your best and let the chips fall where they may. But when you go out there, I thought we had a strong defensive performance, and we didn't get it done offensively. We had a really hard time blocking their front, so it's hard to get really anything going in that regard. And then the turnovers were just absolutely killer, and started with the opening kick, and then having 3 picks, and that was it right there. You're not going to go on the road and win a playoff game when you're -4 in the turnover battle. It's not going to happen. So the fact that we were 16-10 in the fourth quarter, that shows you how well we played on defense to even be in that position. And then, of course, there was a 7.5-minute drive. They kick a field goal and then can't convert on a 4th down, and that's it. So we are extremely disappointed, obviously, but I think you gotta learn from every experience, and there's a lot of lessons along the way, and sometimes those lessons can be tough, but you better be mindful of those and work on the areas that you have to improve upon in order to get over the hump or get past that point.
Yeah, I know it's more than the quarterback, but specifically on the turnovers.
Mindful of those.
Jordan went 7 straight games without an interception. What changed Sunday in Philly? Did they speed him up, or what do you see change with the picks?
Well, the pick that Slay had, that was a heck of a play. I think just you want to talk about the little details. We had an opportunity to stack them, and yeah, the ball was a little inside, but we got to make sure that we stack in that situation. So I don't know if you guys saw the slow-mo. That was a great job by him grabbing his wrist, slingshotting himself, and he made a hell of a catch. The second pick, again, details. That route's got to be run at 20 yards. We're at 15 yards. That ball should never be in that far. So, I saw what Jordan saw. There's an open hole in the defense. But when you're not at the right route depth, bad things happen. So, and then the last one, I don't know what you guys thought. Obviously it was a prayer. We're throwing one up. You got a bow on a linebacker, and was the ball underthrown? Yes, it was. Did he get contact before the ball was there? Yes, he did. Is what it is.
Going back to that opening kickoff, I know it's water under the bridge, but did you ever actually get an explanation about
No,
that?
I have not even attempted to try to. I don't know. It's not going to change anything. So I think in time, I just need to cool off first, I think.
I know you'd fix it if you had a solution, but the slow starts in some of these quote-unquote big games, do you have a why at least, if not a solution, of why you have a chronic problem?
Yeah, you got to maximize all your opportunities, and you got to execute. And I can tell you specifically, since it's so fresh, this last game, we didn't do a great job. There was pressure all day in the pocket. In the passing game, and then there were some runs that were some bad looks that we ran into. So, and then there were other times when we had some running lanes, and we don't win our one-on-one. We don't win a block. So, and that's football. So we just got to collectively, as a group, all of us, myself as much as anybody, we got to be better. That's all I can tell you.
Anticipate any changes with your staff? I know Steno's getting requests. Tom,
Yeah, it'll be interesting over the course of the next couple of days. I think we'll learn some things. I have not talked to our staff yet individually. The only one that I know for certain is Tom Clements is going to retire. And man, it's been a cool ride with him for the last 3 years. He's incredibly consistent. What a great man. Great mind. Obviously, he's had the opportunity to coach some of the best. I mean, when you talk about Favre, Rodgers, and then the development of Jordan Love, I mean, that's pretty cool. And so I know he's meant a lot to this organization and his contributions, and he will definitely be missed. And I can't say enough great things about him and really appreciate him. But he did tell me, you guys, you got to leave him alone. You don't want to talk to nobody.
You would seem to have maybe some house candidates there. Would you go in-house there? Obviously, Sean has played quite well.
Yeah, potentially. We'll see what happens.
Hey, Matt, can you help me understand something about your play action game? Because, when you got here, we all learned about how valuable it was and what a great job you guys did of marrying the run looks with the actual runs. And
Sure.
It felt like you guys kind of changed your blocking scheme to accommodate a really, really good running back. Is that a fair statement?
Well, I would say this. I think coaching is, yeah, you have a philosophy on what you want to do and a foundation of what you want to do, but you better not be so stubborn that you just, this is what we're going to do if your pieces don't necessarily match. I think that's good coaching, putting your players in the best position possible. It's interesting when I look at statistics because I'm always curious. I see something and, oh, we're not doing play action enough. And then I go to our analytics people and they're like, oh, no, you're one of the highest ranked in terms of percentage in the league. I think we were like third or something like that. And so I never know where these stats are coming from, to be honest with you. And now as far as under center play action, we ran the ball more out of the gun, and the efficiency at which we ran the ball was night and day better out of the shotgun than it was under center. So that's kind of why we did what we did. And then I think football evolves. And I'm not saying that we'll not get back to doing our hard run sell. A lot of this, when I got into the league, was out of two-back. And you're running what we used to call pass 15 week, basically inside zone ISO, where your fullback would go fit up on the play side linebacker, and you try to suck up the defense and throw something behind them. And then with that, you'd have a tight end blocking the defensive end off the edge, and then the halfback has all the secondary players. So that obviously, that's just not what we do anymore. We've kind of gotten out of that world. So do I think there's some things that we absolutely could probably do a little bit more under center? No doubt about it. And that's the fun part of this. And that is what I would say from the moment our season ends till we're going through into training camp, that's what you're trying to find is just what is the right recipe for success in this league. And, I thought offensively we did a lot of great things. I know we were statistically one of the better offenses. It doesn't feel like that right now because we had some poor performances towards the back half of the season, and that is disappointing. And I think more than anything is we were really good when we got explosive plays, and we weren't very good when we didn't get explosive plays. And I think if there's something from that is if you're not generating those explosive plays, you better be extremely efficient. You better stay ahead of the sticks, convert on third down, be in those third and manageables, or, but it is harder, obviously, to matriculate the ball down the field with 10, 12, 14 play drives. It's just harder that way. But
I think you had this back and forth with Spoon a few weeks ago too about what's play action, what's not. I'm not trying to get into the weeds on that. What I am thinking is
I honestly, I'm genuinely would like to know how people do as a token fake play action, but all your line is in drop back protection. I don't know how or where all the stats come from, but I am curious about it, and that's something that I'm going to take a deep dive into this offseason to see what is considered what.
I'm just trying understand, because I felt like that was part of an equation that led to you scheming guys open. Like when you got here, I mean, I think we all were like, oh my God, guys are open all the time. And that wasn't necessarily what we had been used to before. And then to hear you say after the Minnesota game, we got to win on one-on-ones, that sounded a little bit more like, you know, I didn't see guys as wide open as maybe I felt like I saw in earlier years of the Matt LaFleur offense. Is that, is that flawed?
It all depends. You know, I think, you know, it's interesting when you go back, and I think this is worth looking into as well. Like, teams had different ways that they were going to defend us. Like, obviously, Philly was going to hold a shell for the majority of the game and make you be really efficient offensively and say, you got to block these creatures up front. And we didn't do that well enough. You know, the Vikings had played a bunch more man in that game. So it's interesting, and I do feel like teams did a little bit more of maybe went off profile a little bit. And so we got to look into why was that the case. But yeah, it doesn't feel good when you end like that. That's the best way I can put it. Is just it felt choppy at the end of the year, and I mean the results say the same. So
Not sure why what your stats guys say, but you know the next gen stats say that Jordan was blitzed as much as any quarterback in the league, right up there in second or third. So why do you think that is, and how much of that is, do you think, teams thinking he can't play under pressure, or is there a protection scheme they're attacking? Do you agree that he was blitzed?
well, it wasn't the other night because they had like one, and we hit a through route right across the middle of the field to Jaden Reed. So I think everybody is built differently, and I think most defenses in today's game are, if they feel like they can get home with 4, they're going to try to do that and have more in coverage. You know, I think it's so game by game, and our game is really, I mean, it's personnel driven as well at the end of the day. And what do you do well? Do you have the guys that can hold up in coverage if you're sending more rushers? I think there's a lot of levels to that question, to be honest with you. It's a great question, Spoon.
Can I go back to play action one more time?
Sure.
So you can run play action under center or shotgun. And that's
Sure.
obvious. Is one more effective? Is it more difficult to go out of shotgun? Or
I just think I think it's dependent upon how you're running the football and what is your action from the offensive line. And there's so many different actions nowadays, right? Like, we did more pulling guard actions than we have the previous 5 years. And there's strengths and weaknesses to everything. But to me, it's just, that's why I'm so interested in the play action question in terms of, because I don't necessarily, when we're in what we call our jet protection, which is our 6-man protection, and our line is pass setting, like, I don't really consider that play action. But because we slapped a ball fake on it, I think it gets marked as play action. So, like, that's why it's so intriguing to me, quite frankly, is what is truly considered play action. I think if you ask a defensive guy and they see, you know, a lineman pass setting, like, they don't really view that as play action. Now, there's a run fake that could be associated with that, but that's why I'm so intrigued by the whole thing, to be honest with you, is what is the analytical world truly considering play action?
It's a young man's game, obviously, and when all that youth rises at the same time, like last year, it's a really great thing to have. When it doesn't, you get asked about it. Does this locker room roster need more established veteran experience?
No, I wouldn't say that. I don't think, I mean, that's just a number to me. I just think you obviously, you want as many good players as you can get, and whether that guy is 22 years old or 32 years old, I don't think it really truly matters. I mean, there's always something to say for experience, you know, being in those big moments. And, you know, being in the playoffs with 2 years in a row with that crew, I think there's a lot of experience that comes along with that. Now, like I mentioned earlier, we gotta play better in those moments. We can't have the critical turnovers. We need everybody on the details, because I think I said this to our team for sure yesterday, but the details usually is what separates. It separates good from great. And we have got to be on top of our details, everybody doing their individual, whatever they're asked to do. They got to do their 111th at a high level. Otherwise, it's hard to win those games.
When there are so many young guys, how does that work with the player-led leadership in the locker room that you really want?
Yeah, I think that's a fair question. Yeah, I think that's our job as coaches, and I've had some of these conversations already with some of our players of like, hey man, I'm gonna push it to get out in front a little bit more. I mean, guys that do things the right way, and I would say the majority of that locker room is, I mean, you guys are around them all the time. They're good people that work hard, and so I feel really confident with the locker room that we have. But I do think there's another step there for certain individuals that are consistent in what they do. And I never want somebody to be somebody that they're not. And people can lead in their own way. It's got to be true to who you are as a person. But I do think there's going to be opportunities for us to kind of nudge them and have them get out in front a little bit more.
Did you see that player leadership that you wanted to see as things kind of went into struggles late in the season?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we had a lot of, I mean, we had a lot of guys speak up and guys say good things. But again, it's one thing to say it. We got to be about the action. And that's another message I gave to our team is like, the expectation is when you leave today and you come back, when we start our offseason program, that you're going to be better, not only physically better, but mentally better than when you left today. I feel like that is a reasonable expectation for everybody, and I expect that. But there's got to be action behind that. You can't just talk about it. You got to go do it, and you got to put the work in. Bottom line.
You mentioned how well the defense played in this last game. Big picture, what did you feel you accomplished in this first year, the transition with the new coordinator?
Yeah, I mean, I thought there was incredible amount of growth, to be honest with you, in terms of maybe a vision of what we wanted to do and where we went to were kind of two different things. But I think that's good coaching, right? Is you make the necessary adjustments and you put your guys in position, and then ultimately those guys got to go out there and execute. And I thought Halfley did an outstanding job, and it's not just Half, it's our entire defensive staff did a really good job with that.
Defense, you guys obviously made huge strides on that side of the ball. You talk about what Philly did with their four-man rush the other day. Is that kind of the next evolution for you guys? And how do you get there with a pass rush that, you know, is not just blitz, blitz, blitz?
Yeah, I mean, we got to put in the work, I think, and just when you get those opportunities, going back to the whole one-on-one, somebody's going to get a one-on-one the majority of the time. If teams are dropping back, especially in those known passing situations. On first and second down, you can max it up a little bit more and get more double teams on people. But I would say in those known passing situations, get back on track. Third and really medium plus, guys got to be able to win one-on-ones. And there's certain things that you can do structurally to help create some one-on-one opportunities for our guys. Like typically, if you put a linebacker on the ball and you space it out so that each lineman is covered, you're going to get a 5-0, and you'll have 5 one-on-ones. But somebody got to win.
Where did you envision this defense going, and where did you have to adjust to get it to where it did get to?
Well, I envisioned, rushing 4 and playing 3 4 under a heck of a lot more, and we ended up doing a lot of simulated blitzes and different pressures and playing a bunch of cover 2. So, but I think that, again, you always evolve, and throughout the course of the season, through the offseason. But that was the foundation, I would say, of the defense. But I thought our guys did a great job of adjusting, and I thought we were playing some pretty good football at the end.
Obviously, Jordan, with all the injuries this season, kind of tainted a few games, but what did you think of his development from year one as a starter to year two?
Yeah, I thought there was a lot of great moments. Every year is going to be a little bit different. The one thing that I'm so impressed by when I watch him play is just his ability to avoid the sacks. There's many times just his ability to slide in the pocket, manipulate that pocket, and know where his check downs are and his outlets, or run up in the pocket. I think he's gotten a really good grasp of that, a really good feel. Because you never want quarterbacks looking at the rush. You want their eyes downfield, and you got to feel that. So I thought he did a really good job, and I think the numbers would back that up as well in terms of just, he doesn't take a lot of sacks.
Do you have a chance to talk to John on the way out, after Flyer?
No, I saw him in the team meeting. I have not had an individual. I told these guys, I've had some individual meetings. I told the guys that want to come by that my office is open, and then I will reach out to everybody over the course of these next couple of weeks. So,
going back to Jordan, what's the next step for him?
I think the next step is just to continue to evolve as a vocal leader. I think that just kind of comes with the position naturally. And I think he's taken steps to get there, but I think he can really demand a lot because the locker room they respect him, and they respect him not only as a person, but by the work he puts in. I mean, he's a grinder. He's one of the guys. I think that's one of his best qualities is he is one of the guys, but they all respect him. But I think he can, when things aren't quite right, I think he can voice that as well. When guys aren't quite doing what they're supposed to be doing, and he's one of the guys I kind of talk to about that. Because I just think it means more when it comes from your quarterback than it does from me or one of our other coaches.
Do you have more plans for him to do movement stuff this year before he got hurt? Is that something you'd like to do more with him?
Yeah, I think every game's a little bit different. I think it depends who you're playing again, in terms of just how wide are the edges. I know, like going in this game versus Philly, we only had one keeper in the game, just because they did such a good job of reading out of it, especially to the right side where Jalen Carter, I guess the offensive right. I can't tell you how many times I saw carnage on the tape, quarterbacks just getting blasted, coming out on keeper fakes. So, and then also just, I don't want to say too much for all our opposition out there, but there's some looks that I absolutely do not like to run keepers into, just because as a play caller, to me, everything is about probability of probability of a play working. Obviously, if you get the right look, the probability of that play working is going to be exponentially higher than if you get a bad look. And just the way some teams play with a lot of these shell looks, they're not always great. So I think there's going to be a lot of time to kind of take a deep dive into how are other teams running some of these plays and how are they being effective.
You've had quarterbacks at so many different points in their careers throughout your coaching career. Going into year 3, I mean, it's hard not to look at what Jordan did during the second half of last season and then compare it to some of the struggles he had at different times this season and not know quite where he is. So when you look at where he is and what you're challenging him to become, how critical is year 3 to kind of make that big jump?
I think I've said this many times, but the QB is going to get the blame when you lose, and he's going to get the praise when you win. I mean, I believe that football is the ultimate team sport, and it's not just him. Like, we got to catch the ball better. I mean, we had a lot of drops. I don't know where we ranked in the league. I mean, you guys probably know that, right? Where were we, Spoon?
Last.
Okay, that's what I figured, but I didn't want to say that. Yeah, not where we want to be. So, I mean, I guess that's one example. I mentioned earlier, you know, I think it's hard to throw when I tell our defense all the time, I've never seen a quarterback that can complete a pass when he's on his back, or very few. So, like, when you're getting pressure, that it's hard to be effective. It's hard. Your numbers aren't probably not going to be very good.
I understand that. I'm just, you know this, having played the position, that is, fair or not, that's what happens, right?
Absolutely, 100%. And I think you got to take it in stride, and that's why you always got to go back. To me, I think the numbers tell you one thing, but you gotta watch the tape and analyze the tape and see what areas can we get better in. And I think just the one thing I did talk to him about was, you know, just the consistency of his footwork on some of these plays. I would say, and I think he would be the first to tell you the same thing, because there were some instances throughout the course of the season, and specifically in this last game, where the rhythm and timing is especially when you have a rhythm play, whether you're like quick game, for example, just that left-right footwork that we take, just hitting your back foot and letting it rip. Or if you do take a hitch, you got to find your check down typically, or progress on. So I would say that, just because I think that's the foundation of great quarterback play is the fundamentals, the techniques, the footwork. And I think we experienced that with him this year, to be honest with you. When he wasn't practicing, it wasn't quite as crisp. So I do think, back to the injury deal, like, that was a big deal when he wasn't practicing. And just how conscious we have to be about all the fundamentals when we are practicing. So that'll be, yeah, that'll be on the, I would say, on the forefront of our minds all the time. Every practice, it's just making sure our fundamentals are sharp. And then I think another thing that we could do a little bit better is just, and we probably got to rep this a little bit more, is in our scramble drills in practice. You know, so many times you get used to throwing the right look or whatever, and you're scripting, especially when you're scripting against the defense, you want the quarterbacks to, if they get the look in the game, you want, while you're calling the play, you want it to be automatic. So a lot of times you'll script those. That's why I love our unscripted periods when we go offense versus defense, because you have no idea what's coming, and now you got to play it. You got to play it, the play, you know, just play it out. And so naturally, some of those scramble opportunities could come up in those situations. But that's an area that I think collectively everybody, from receivers, tight ends, and backs, we got to get better at.
When next season starts, effectively you're going to have a new boss. What is your relationship like with Ed, and how do you think things might change, be different with
I'm going to have a new boss?
Ed
I'm just
Powell?
kidding. Yeah, I love Ed. I mean, I've had a lot of interaction with him. You know, I love Mark. You know, it's tough to, I mean, I feel bad that we sent him out like this, you know. There was nothing more than I wanted to win for him. But, you know, that's the deal. But Ed's been great. He's been super supportive, I would say, of everybody from my time here, and gotten to know him pretty well. We work a lot together on like some of the contractual things with our coaches, and he's always been great to work with. So I'm glad we chose Ed.
You know the goals and the expectations around here, and you know that you fell short in some of these quote-unquote bigger games. Do you feel like you're close? Is it a small step? Is it a big step to get there?
I think right at the moment, you don't feel it. But again, I think, you know, we won 11 games. I know that's not, it was good for third place in our division. It's one of those crazy years, man. I just think we have to be a little bit more consistent, and especially in those big-time games. You can't turn the ball over. You got to find ways to move the ball. You got to maximize your opportunities. I mean, I think Brandon's been a great addition for us, and he misses a 38-yarder. Just why did that happen? I don't know. I mean, it just happened. Unfortunately, it happened. But I got a lot of confidence in the guy, and he was a great addition to us and really helped us. So everybody has got to play their best, especially your best players got to play their best in the big games.
Talent-wise, though, do you think you have what you need?
Absolutely. I think we got a ton of talent. Can you always add to that? No doubt about it. And I think when you look at just going against Philly, I think that's one of the, arguably maybe the most talented roster in the league. I mean, they're pretty darn good. And just is what it is.
I just want to make sure I understand how you're seeing it with the offense down the stretch. Do you see it as not a lot of that was really on the play of your own quarterback?
I think it's collective. I mean, in terms of, obviously, you can't have the turnovers, but I'm giving you reasons as to why some of those happened. Do I think he can play better? Absolutely. Do I think I can help him out and be better? Absolutely. Do I think we can play better around him? Absolutely. I just think it's too much to put it on one person. I really do. I think collectively we have to be better, and I expect better. I mean, we performed at a pretty high level the majority of the season, and then took a dive. And that's why it feels, I would say, different than a year ago.
Keyshawn yesterday said he doesn't want to return kicks anymore and he wants to be a number one corner.
It was interesting.
Are either of those viable?
Well, Keyshawn and I have a really good relationship, and we have a meeting today to talk about this. So I love Key. I do. I love how he competes. I love how he prepares. He's, not sure why he said what he said.
Hey, Matt, is there a possibility in your offense that Tucker Kraft could do what George Kittle, what Travis?
100%. And I think that's on us to make sure that we find him and feature him, because he is, I mean, when he gets the ball in his hands, you feel him. So if there was an area that we got to do a better job on, I would say featuring the tight end.
Why do you think that didn't happen this year? I mean, you saw
certainly he's, well, for a lot of reasons. It just depends, again, going back to who you're playing. A lot of times, especially in known passing situations, I mean, we were trying to help certain spots, and typically, I would say, it's usually the tight ends and the backs that get a bunch of that responsibility. So that's part of the reason.
Do you think there's a bigger role? Like, can you put him out, split him out a little bit more? Can he be defended like that? Or?
We did that at times. I
don't know if we asked any more questions about anything other than having a number one wide receiver versus having the group that you have. But historically around here, whether it was Jennings or Jordy or Devontae, someone from inside the group elevated to being that guy. Do you need someone, after what you experienced this season, do you need someone to take that role on, or is that still not something that matters?
I would say it just depends on the situation. I know, I'm sorry. I know you want a better answer than that. But I will tell you, I think our collection of receivers is pretty darn good. I think we got 6 guys that we definitely feel like we can lean on. I do think just going back to this last game, losing Christian obviously hurt us. And then in game, when you lose Rome and Jay Reed, I mean, that definitely didn't help. But to answer your question, I can't really answer your question. It just depends who we're playing. If we're getting a bunch of, do you want a guy that can catch a slant and take it to the house? Absolutely. But I think we have guys. It just depends how teams play us, how much man you're going to get, and do you isolate that guy and let him go win a one-on-one? And
you had Devontae obviously here, you know what happens when the money's on the table and you have a guy that you just absolutely know can get, so I understand it's situational, but when there's a guy that elevates his game, that does change the dynamic of an offense, right? I mean, you're designing
Yeah,
plays to go to.
yeah, I definitely, and he would definitely dictate coverage, you know what I'm saying? So, there's pluses and minuses to everything in terms of if you have a guy or not, because, but I love the group. I think they work their tail off. I do think there's a lot more out there for them. We got to be more consistent. We got to make sure when given those opportunities, we come down with that football.
Matt, we talked a lot
Go
about,
ahead, Rob.
you want to follow up on the
Yeah, I just want to know about Rome. Is there some concern after he had the concussion earlier than or Sunday looked pretty bad?
You know, yeah, I'm concerned, absolutely, but I haven't talked to our medical people. I haven't sat down with them and whether or not there's long-term concern, but I think anytime a guy gets 2 concussions, I can't help but be concerned about that.
And you've talked a lot about the detail with Jordan and footwork and things like that, but just from a step back and look at it, view after 2 years, where do you think he's at?
I think he is an ascending player that is going to get better and better and better. And I think he approaches the game the right way. Like I said, I think we can continue to urge him to be he's kind of I wouldn't say a reserved guy, well, maybe reserved, but just keep nudging him to take on a little bit more vocal of a role. And like I said, I think that comes with the position. That's something we've talked about. But I love working with the guy every day. He is that whole quarterback room. Great synergy in there, and those guys are they're about the team. They care for one another. They come to work with the right mentality every day.
Remember that feeling of the loss. Can you sense that over the last 72 hours of meeting with the guys and talking to them that they're going to remember this feeling and get better?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody's kind of gutted. Again, I think if you go out there and you play at your best and you come up short, there's a different feeling. And you got to give them, I'm not trying to take any credit away from Philly. That's a really good team. But, I don't think you can't have 4 turnovers in a game and expect to win the game.